We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast was recorded, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation, and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and future. Welcome to the podcast series of Raising the Bar Melbourne, curated by the Faculty of Medicine, Dentistry and Health Sciences at the University of Melbourne. This special health edition of Raising the Bar, held in May of 2026, featured 20 talks by some of Melbourne's leading healthcare experts and was held across 10 pubs and bars, all in one night. The speakers presented topics ranging from AI and cancer research to understanding ADHD and neurodiversity, helping kids sleep, healthy social media habits, the future of robotic surgery, and much more. In this episode, you'll hear a discussion led by Professor Ada Cheung with a panel of trans and gender diverse people with lived experience. Together, they'll cut through the misinformation and polarizing rhetoric around transgender health, debunk common myths, and highlight the real-world impacts of stigma and discrimination.
Welcome everyone to Beyond the Noise, Understanding Transgender Health Through Lived Experience. I'm Ada Cheung. I'm an endocrinologist and a professor of medicine at the University of Melbourne, where I lead the Trans Health Research Group. If you've turned on the news or opened social media in the last few years, you've probably noticed that trans people are being talked about constantly. There are debates about sport, about bathrooms, about healthcare, about who gets to play, work, exist in public life. A lot of that conversation is loud, it's polarised, and sometimes just frankly completely disconnected from the actual lives of trans people. So today I wanted to do something different. Instead of debating evidence or debating trans people, I want you to meet some. 3 of them, all doctors, all thoughtful, accomplished people doing important work in our community, and all just happen to be trans or gender diverse. So a quick word on how did I come to work in this space? I, as an endocrinologist, a hormone doctor, I didn't set out to specialise in transgender health. About a decade ago, I started seeing more and more trans people in my clinic because there were almost no other doctors willing to provide gender-affirming healthcare. The clinical need was overwhelming and the evidence, the research evidence to guide care, which we do in medicine for almost every area, was really thin. So in about 2017, I established the Trans Health Research Group at the University of Melbourne to try and change that. And what started as just filling a clinical gap has become almost my life's work to try and improve the health and well-being of the trans community. But before I introduce my 3 wonderful guests, let me give you a bit of context about why this conversation matters. So, despite what you might see in the media, trans people make up only 0.9% of the Australian population. They are not always visible. They are your neighbours, your colleagues, your doctors, your kids' teachers. Most people know more trans people than they realise. But trans Australians face some of the worst health inequities of any group in this country. The rates of depression, anxiety and suicidality are many-fold higher, over 10-fold higher, than the general population. And here's the critical point. Decades of research, including my own at the University of Melbourne, shows this isn't because being trans is a mental illness. It isn't. The distress is driven by discrimination in almost all aspects of life, family rejection, and the experience of trying to live in a world that doesn't accept you. When trans people can access gender-affirming care and can be supported by family and community, mental health outcomes improve substantially, and that finding is one of the most consistent in the field. But despite this evidence, trans healthcare and trans lives have become a political flashpoint. Decisions are increasingly being made on ideology or people's beliefs rather than science, and it is trans people, including children, who bear the cost. That is the noise. Today, we're going beyond it. Let me introduce my 3 guests. First, Danielle, an infectious diseases physician. Alex, an emergency medicine doctor, originally from Singapore. And Sav, an academic researcher. I'm going to ask each of them to introduce themselves properly, tell us about their work, and share when they first understood their gender. So, to Danielle, let's start with you. Tell us who you are and what you do as a physician and when you first understood your gender.
Thanks, Ada. So my name's Danielle. I'm an infectious disease physician. I've been practicing medicine for 26 years now. And infectious disease physician, it's mostly hospital work, I would say. Like, hospitals have been my stomping ground for all of my career, really.
Yeah.
My happy place has been being in a rural or remote hospital, dusty, sometimes in other countries, trying to tackle some of the most interesting and challenging infections going around. So day to day, like, it might involve picking the right antibiotic for a given infection. I've done a lot of HIV medicine and viral hepatitis and tuberculosis. And I've led programs with treatment and prevention in all over Australia and Thailand and Botswana.
Yep. It's really interesting insight to what your work involves. So you're doing really interesting work. What was it like from a gender perspective when you, like, coming out professionally as a doctor?
Terrifying, really.
Can you tell us a bit about why?
Well, one reason is until I came out, I didn't know of a single trans doctor. So there was no example for me to follow.
Yep.
And
they exist, but they probably weren't that visible.
Right. At least not in the world that I was circulating in. And, in my own journey, I realised around 2015, 2016, so a good 10 years ago, that things were coming to a head with my gender and my ability to cope. And I saw medicine as being a very conservative, very hierarchical profession. And I was worried. I had a real fear of losing my career, losing my job, losing my income. And I thought, I'm in a publicly facing profession. Are they ready to have a trans doctor?
Yeah.
And I didn't know the answer to that question. So it was really, really worrying. And it took me many years to start believing that I could actually continue working, in something I do really well, I was highly trained for, really experienced. But it was only about maybe a year or a year and a half before I finally came out that I thought, no, I'm gonna continue doing my job.
Yeah.
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 So it was terrifying, really, really hard. And that's one reason why I've been visible since I came out. Part of it is that I was established, and, like, it's a small community, the medical community, everyone knew me. And so there's no way that I could just do it quietly. Like, I couldn't just turn up at work as Danielle one day and no one would sort of blink. So I knew that I would be open no matter what. And I decided that actually I wanted to be public about it and to speak publicly in order to be an example to others. And I have now met other young doctors and medical students who have heard my story, and that's been amazing to hear that I've been an example.
Thank you for being a role model. You've talked about, like, when you came out at work. How long was that compared to when you first understood your gender?
Understood is an interesting word. So I was born in the 70s. I grew up in the 80s. This was pre-internet.
Yep.
And, did I understand that I was trans? No, I didn't have the examples around me to show. But I have a very strong memory with photographic evidence of my first time of gender euphoria, which was as about 2 years old.
Yep.
And I said to my mum,
that's pretty young.
It's very young. Yeah. I said, make me a girl. And she put my hair in little piggy tails. And there's a photo of me just looking I saw myself in the mirror and I was just so incredibly chuffed. Like, this is amazing. I love this.
Yeah.
And there were others with like clip-on earrings and all that kind of stuff. But then, within a couple of years, by the time I was 5, I learnt to hide that part of myself. I learnt that was not socially acceptable. And so, like a lot of trans people, I buried it deep and I kept it very, very, very private.
Yep.
But I've always had that side of myself. And I guess in my early 40s,
that's when you transitioned.
Well, that was when things came to a head.
Mm-hmm.
I came out 4 years ago,
Yep.
which was like late 40s. I started really reflecting on my life and thinking I can't die one day with my loved ones, including my 2 children, only knowing 80% of me, but not 100% of me.
Yep.
And that was the way that I thought about it, is that me being trans and me always having a really feminine side that I had to express, that was about 20% of what makes me up. And the rest is all sorts of other stuff.
Absolutely.
But it killed me to think that my mum and my loved ones and my kids wouldn't know that about me. So that was where the crisis came.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I knew that I had to come out. I eventually knew that I had to transition.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Alex, your turn. Tell us about your work in emergency medicine and your journey from Singapore to Australia and when you first understood your gender.
Sure. Thanks, Ada. So I work in the ED. Pretty much, I did
That's
just
emergency
the other
department.
Yeah, emergency department. Sorry, and pretty much just the day before, a patient said it's the most depressing place to be in the world, and I was like, oh yeah, I work here. So we pretty much see anyone from a fully tackled fractured collarbone to someone with a stroke or a heart attack, and just sometimes seeing people at their most vulnerable.
Absolutely.
A lot of people say it's stressful, but I like the adrenaline. So I quite like helping in that sense in a time critical area. And
often saving lives, I imagine.
I think so. I hope so. And yeah, I wasn't born here. I was from Singapore. Pretty much fled the place because as my journey through understanding gender and things, that just wasn't a good place to be at that point in time. And now, hopefully things are better, but I'm not sure. Similar with Danielle, it's like I knew from pretty early on, not really having photographic evidence, but pretty much as young as I had a conscious mind, I just didn't want any sort of girly clothes. They were like, oh, look at all this pink Barbie stuff. I'm like, no, thank you. Give me my Hot Wheels and my Beyblade. But
I remember Beyblades.
yeah, they're still around. They're still around. Like my family was okay. Because they always thought, oh, it's just a phase. And I grew up with my 2 male cousins, so it was just easier to share toys. We were very rich, so easy. But as I grew up, and it's like, oh, then societal sort of standards set in. It's like, oh, girls need to have long hair, girls need to do this, girls need to see their legs crossed, they need to like pink. And I'm just like, why? and I always knew I was attracted to ladies, but then in that era, it was not era, in that space in Singapore, then people are like, oh, she's a lesbian. I'm like, that there's nothing wrong with being a lesbian, but I just didn't like that label.
It didn't fit.
It didn't fit. I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh, something's not quite right with that. But I didn't have role models back there as well, and it's not on the news. Censorship is quite a thing.
Was trans a word in community in Singapore?
I don't think so. I didn't know of that vocabulary until I came here to further my studies. And it was my Australian LGBT rainbow friends that sort of, they know who I am, how I come to be. They see my struggles and just not mental health, because it's just constant internal conflicting thoughts of wanting to fit in the model and just not be out there and just suffocating because I'm not being myself.
Do you think they persuaded you or influenced you in any way?
Oh, I definitely wouldn't say that. I would say they actually gave me the knowledge because you can't know your identity. You don't know the concept of gender other than what was taught to you growing up.
Mm.
And then when other people sort of tell you, hey, it is not just binary. Look at all this. And I'm like, whoa, I know where I fit now, because if you don't have the vocabulary, you cannot describe who you are.
How would you describe your gender now?
Transgender? Yeah. But
Man?
man. And on forms, I just can't be bothered to explain to everyone. I just take male, just it's easier. It's the easier way out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you been back to Singapore? Do you feel like the culture there and understanding of gender has changed?
No, I haven't been back because it's not a good place.
Do you feel safe there?
In the past, I wasn't so out and about, not so physically different from others. But now going back, I would still blend in, but the people who knew me would be shocked because that's not what they remember.
Mm.
So I rather avoid that kind of worm, so I haven't been back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Good.
Sav, how are you?
Good, thank you, Ada.
Now, many people in our audience may never have heard a non-binary person describe their experience in their own words. We've heard from Danielle and we've heard from Alex. So tell us about your work as an academic and walk us through what being non-binary means for you.
Yeah, sure, thank you. I think, it's a lot easier for people generally to wrap their head around the idea of someone who's affirming their gender from being seen and understood in the world as a male to a woman, or from female to a man.
Yeah, like a trans man or a trans woman.
Exactly. But the non-binary experience is a little bit more challenging to wrap your head around.
Absolutely.
I guess, like in terms of who I am and the work that I do, the personal and the professional are very entwined. And what has gone on for me personally in terms of my gender has really informed my career pathway. So, yeah, I'll just share, I guess, a little bit about my non-binary experience and just acknowledge that every non-binary experience, just like every other experience of gender, is quite personal and unique. And so I certainly don't speak for all non-binary people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, first, I guess I would define non-binary for everyone.
Yeah.
And, broadly what we're talking about when we say someone with a non-binary gender, it means that they don't exclusively identify with one of the binary genders, so as a man or as a woman. And that can take a lot of different forms for different people. Some people can have quite a fluid, changing sense of gender. Some people can have...
Like gender fluid.
Yeah, where their experience of gender can change, like from masculine to feminine across, days or weeks or months, to someone who has a more stable sense of gender, but it doesn't quite sit in those binary categories. So, yeah, I think the tricky thing is navigating a world where we've always been told, at least in Western cultures, that there's only two ways of being when it comes to gender.
Yeah, there's boys' toys, there's girls' toys,
Exactly.
There's boys' sport, there's girls' sport.
Yeah, so and so I was born in the 80s, I grew up in the 90s, same thing, just kind of, most of my teenage years were pre-internet. And so my world was very small. I lived in a small coastal regional town. What I knew of the world was, it was very small. And so I, for as long as I can remember, had a sense of being different to my peers. I didn't fit in well with the girls and I wasn't a boy. And then puberty was really challenging as well. But I didn't have words like gender dysphoria or I didn't know about trans people. And it was only really like in my late teens to early 20s when I started engaging with the LGBTIQA plus community that I met trans people for the first time. And I remember, in my early 20s meeting some trans men and being so curious about their experience because there was something there.
People like Alex
that made so much sense. Like there was some familiarity in their experience, but I also knew I wasn't a man. And so I didn't know what to do with that information. And I really tried throughout my 20s to just do woman, whatever that means, and didn't do it very well. Yeah. I just felt like it's like wearing a costume and the costume's, the wrong size. Like it just something was off. And I then came across some of the language, words like gender fluid and gender queer, but I didn't really fully understand what that meant. And it's taken a really long time and meeting a lot of different people and having a lot of conversations to fully understand what it might mean to be a non-binary person and the diversity of experiences that can fall under that umbrella. And so, I spent my 20s still trying to work out who I was in terms of my gender. Yeah. And didn't really come to, using words like non-binary until I was in my early 30s. So it was a very long journey for me from like childhood just feeling different to other people to like into my 30s starting to find the language and make sense of myself and still feeling like now at 40 that I'm still working myself out and being okay with that and enjoying that in a sense.
Yeah. You talked about feeling a lot of distress at puberty. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I think it was really confusing to make sense of. So for me, that was a lot of shame or discomfort with breast development. And I remember I went to a Catholic high school. We, wore little dresses and never wanting to wear a bra, like always wearing sports crop tops that would flatten my chest and like curving my shoulders in to hide breast development and things like that. And just never getting past that stage of...
It wasn't just an awkward phase.
It wasn't an awkward phase. Because, I never, it wasn't something like it took me a bit of time to get used to breast development or something. Like it never changed. And the same with menstruation, like really struggling with that and not growing out of that awkwardness. I think things that come with puberty in terms of like changes to the body were really quite challenging to deal with, but I had no idea. Like I didn't know what the term gender dysphoria meant. I had no way of make sense of that. And, there was certainly a bit of shame around it too. So I didn't talk to people about it either.
Yeah. Alex, I can see you nodding. Do you share some of what Sav's saying resonate with you?
Yeah, it resonates very strongly, especially with that once everyone hits puberty, you start to get changes to your body. And I still remember to this day, ever since the breast started to develop, every day I was just telling my parents, can I chop them off? I just want them chopped off. It's just causing me so much stress. I did all the, the binding and stuff and hunching over.
You must have scared your parents to a degree.
They thought it was a joke because in their minds, how they were brought up and culturally, they just think it's an awkward phase during the puberty. So they were like, you'll be fine. You should be proud of it. You should flaunt it. I was like, no. You're not giving me right advice. It's not resonating.
Yeah. Sounds like a really challenging time for you.
It has passed.
Yeah. Did you have any comments, Danielle?
No. I mean, there are elements that, I mean, even though my experience is very different, there's commonalities, and there's experiences that you have. I will mention one thing, like, okay, so in my case, assigned or assumed male at birth, and then I lived my 48 years as a male presenting person, no matter how I felt inside. And in that last 12 months before I came out, I had started hormones. I'd started estrogen, and I was very careful about the timing of coming out at work. And so after my body started to change and my breasts started to develop, actually I was wearing tight sports bras and wearing baggier and baggier scrubs to hide the changes at work, and hunching the shoulders over, and then ending like a 15 hour long day with like, oh, my ribs really hurt, and my back and my chest. And, that's something that we might associate more with the experience of a trans man. But in my case, I had to hide the feminine body changes. And so I was sort of smiling to myself thinking, okay, in my limited way, I've experienced some of what you've experienced as well.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So you've just heard 3 very different stories from 3 accomplished people. And now I want to dig a bit more into what life actually looks like for you, Sav, Alex and Danielle, day to day, and then get into some of the harder questions. So before we get into the heavier stuff, I want the audience to know you as people. We've heard a bit about that already, but tell us something completely ordinary or joyful about your life right now that has nothing to do with being trans. Weekend plans, family, hobbies. What's on your mind this week, Alex?
Well, I'm working the weekend on call.
Yeah.
So I'm trying
as an emergency doctor.
No, currently I'm in a slightly different rotation. So it's more of a hospital ward-based work. But yeah, I'm the weekend. So I'm not trying to think of that. But I have a couple of days off. So I'm going to spend it with my 3 cats.
3 cats?
Yes.
Amazing. What are their names?
The oldest one is Bo. He is 17 years old.
Wow.
He's getting senile. Like, cats can get dementia, that's what I've learned. They start meowing into thin air and not recognize where they are. Then 7-year-old is a girl cat, Princess, and then there's Lecter. He's 3, and he's very naughty, and he keeps trying to go out and catch the native birds, which we tell him no. So I'm going to keep an eye on him while he is outside. That's like sort of a relaxation day for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Danielle, what brings you joy?
So this coming weekend, it's exciting. I need to prepare for it. So I'm playing in an orchestra concert on Sunday.
What do you play?
I'm a violinist, and
You're quite an accomplished violinist, aren't you?
Yeah, I used to be a professional violinist.
Wow.
Like throughout my university years, I played in State Orchestra Victoria, professional musicals here, as well as in Europe. I played in the Finnish National Opera Orchestra, and I had a pretty successful string quartet.
Incredible.
So music,
multi-talented.
Yeah, maybe just, endlessly curious brain. Music's been a massive part of my life since I can remember. Like, I've been playing violin since I was 5, and if I weren't able to play music, it'd be like cutting off an arm.
Yeah.
So there is an orchestra of very talented doctors in Melbourne called Corpus Medicorum, and I'm going to be playing with them on Sunday. And I do that about 4 times a year, and it's just such a joy. And to reconnect to the joy of the euphoria of post-transition, like self-acceptance as a trans person. A lot of the people that I play with music have known me since I was 18 or 20.
Yep.
And I've been playing in this orchestra since the first concert, which was over 20 years ago. And they've seen me grow up from being a medical student to being a young doctor, and then to be able to transition and then really express my soul through music as 100% me with my old friends, and for them to completely accept me and embrace the courage that it's taken to do that. It's just every time I get on stage and play and I'm presenting as myself, it's really I don't know. It's just fantastic.
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful, beautiful feeling, and I think that's why the whole conversation about sport is so upsetting, because like for a lot of people, sports has that joy, and
Doesn't it?
all we want to do as trans people is do the things that make us happy,
Yep.
but without hiding who we are.
Yep. Play music,
Yeah.
play sport,
Yeah,
go out with friends for dinner.
absolutely. So that's my weekend coming up, and last weekend was spent with friends, comforting a friend in her mother's memorial, spending a bit of time with my mum,
Yep.
and having some meals with my kids. And that's, as ordinary as you can get.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear more about the concert. Sav, what brings you joy?
A lot of my life revolves around my rescue dog, Chewy.
Chewy.
Yeah. So, and I've just moved to a new area, so I really look forward to doing different walks with the dog each weekend, and exploring the rivers and the ocean areas, and that I think really gives me joy. Being out in nature is a huge thing for me and my mental health.
Yep. Alex, tell us about a moment in, we've heard about the wonderful feeling of being accepted and finding joy. Tell us about a moment in everyday life when someone got it right. Not a grand gesture, just an ordinary moment where someone made you feel seen.
Yeah. So I still quite vividly recall during my med school years, I was going to get my surgery done. So I needed to get some time off to recover from it.
Yeah. What surgery? If you don't
Top
mind me
surgery.
asking.
So
Chest
surgery. Removal of excess tissues that develop during puberty.
Yep.
And so, medical school is quite busy. You can't really take extended leave for things. And
It's
I wasn't,
endless demands.
yeah, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure if this actually fits as, medical emergency, because it's not really planned elective surgery. So I had to sort of come out to the clinical director to explain to her why I needed time off. And I was like so full of fear. I was worried. It's like, oh, I'm actually coming out because I've been hiding, stealthing quite well. No one can tell unless I disclose to them. I was like, oh, am I gonna get kicked out from medical school? Am I gonna get judged? Am I gonna get picked on? Or all those crazy
many thoughts going through
and
your
worries
mind.
was in my head. I'm just like, then when I finally explained it to her, she was actually very kind. She didn't treat me any different. And she approved it. And I was like, oh, it's not
How did
such
that
a
feel for you?
bad, scary world out there. There are people that have an open mind and are accepting. Yes, she had a brief look of surprise because she didn't know. But yeah, she didn't treat me any different from others from then on.
Yeah. Do you think there's many people, trans people in the community, who are stealth, who no one knows?
Yeah, I would think so. So my radar or gaydar for my peers are not that good. So I know you're not meant to judge a book by its cover, but if they're stealthing, I can't tell. They're doing it pretty well if that's what they want to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we're everywhere.
Yeah. I certainly have many patients who I treat who no one in their community knows. Danielle, tell us about a moment in everyday life when someone got it right for you.
Recent one was I started working in a new hospital a few months ago, and It was interstate, so I was travelling, and just at the end of the 2 weeks, there was an event
Yep.
held in town, and it was a Women in Medicine drinks and meal, and I was invited, and that might seem normal, and it should seem normal, but it really touched me. It was the first time I've been invited to a female doctors event, it made me quite emotional. Everyone there was just in such a great mood, just women doctors wanting to support other doctors, getting to know who's around, and the fact that I was just embraced is wonderful, and it's the way it should be. Because of all the noise in the media that you referred to earlier,
There is a lot of noise.
there's
And
always a fear and an apprehension.
Fear in the community. Yeah.
Yeah, there's fear in the community, absolutely, because I think not enough people know
Understand.
a trans person and can just, get to know us as people. But I have the fear of, well, what if I'm not accepted? And that's a constant. It's a little bit of noise in the background of my life, really.
So when you're preparing...
So that was amazing. That was great.
Yeah.
Very affirming. Wonderful.
Fantastic.
And just ordinary.
Yeah.
And no one blinked an eye. It was great.
That's how it should be for everything.
It is how it
In the
should be
ideal
for
world.
everything. Yes.
Sav, what do you wish more people understood about being trans or non-binary in everyday life that gets lost in all of this noise and all these headlines and the debates?
Yeah, I think it comes down to seeing being trans as something that's not inherently problematic or isn't inherently an illness or something to be fixed. And that's, the kind of narrative that we get told in a lot of the headlines and that comes out in public discourse is one that, frames us in this way that a trans person is something of a tragedy or something to be sad about.
I often hear people say mentally ill or...
I guess I would like to see us kind of flip that narrative a little bit and start looking at how problematic and limited a binary gender system can be for people, not just trans people, but all people. It really kind of restricts us in terms of our expression of gender and our full authenticity.
Absolutely.
And,
even for cisgender kids who may not be stereotypical boys or stereotypical girls.
Yeah, so I think kind of, interrogating that binary system can be really, really helpful for everyone. And, and part of that thing of challenging that narrative of tragedy and illness is what happens if we flip this and we consider trans people as these incredible people that were so brave to take these steps to affirm themselves and that gender affirmation is an act of self-love. And then could we not admire trans people and maybe even celebrate them in their authenticity, the way that we celebrate a lot of other people when they express their authenticity? I would love to see that kind of flipping of the narrative a little bit.
Absolutely. And it goes for any sort of human trait. We should be celebrating our individuality overall.
Yep.
Danielle, is there anything you'd like to add?
Sav has really expressed it just beautifully. Self-acceptance was so central to my journey with accepting myself as trans. And self-acceptance is such a powerful thing for everybody.
Yeah.
No matter who they are.
Did you find yourself trying to deny your own experience?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then eventually I realised that I couldn't keep denying it And then, well, because of society's attitudes, I felt a lot of shame. And it was very, very, very important for me to accept myself and to say, okay, I really am trans, and actually there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
And it's really
You're not
beautiful.
broken.
And that makes me an interesting person, along with all the other things that make me an interesting person. And in my own mind, I just had to flip it to embracing it, and rather than trying to hide it and being ashamed. And the one thing that I wish that the general community would understand better is that all trans people, whether they've transitioned or not, are just trying to get a sense of peace of mind. And there is, mental turmoil until you find the formula, and whatever you can however you can construct your life to have peace of mind. And having been through it, there's nothing like that. And I'm incredibly grateful that I got to the stage where I'm really peaceful. I'm calm, I'm centered, and it's unlike the earlier stages of my life, and that's priceless, really.
Absolutely. It's really insightful. Thank you. Alex, you grew up in Singapore and now work in Australia. Some people claim that trans identity is a Western phenomenon or a modern phenomenon. What's your experience across two cultures? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I find it quite interesting with this perspective. So Singapore is pretty much a melting pot of various cultures and ethnicities. So I'm not sure about other people's culture. I can only speak for sort of Asian, Chinese background. I think it's...
Singapore also has a lot of big Indian population, Malay population.
Eurasians, which is like European,
Caucasian
descent,
expats.
So heaps, And Singapore has been colonized by the British in the past. So I don't think transgender or LGBT is a Western or modern import. I think it's existed for thousands of years. It's recorded even back in history. But I think it's more of a Western import of the binary system and the patriarchal system, which then was adopted by the locals and became oppressive towards trans people and LGBT people. It's the other way around.
Yep.
Like one of my childhood favorite Disney princesses, if you call them that, is actually Mulan. She actually exists in history.
Yep.
Born female. I'm not saying she's transgender, so don't come and scream at me, people. But it's sort of, she was born female, but to sort of protect her family, she pretended to be a guy, so maybe drag or dressed up to take her father's steed to serve in the army because he was old and she didn't want him to die. And she could still be celebrated. So there's a lot of instances throughout history of this being okay and celebrated instead of being shunted.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep. So I just want to turn to a lot of the noise that we've talked about at the beginning. There's been an enormous escalation in public debate about trans people in the last few years. Some of it claims trans people are confused or part of a trend. As doctors and researchers, and as trans people yourselves, what's your response when you hear that? I might go to Sav.
Look, firstly, I just want to acknowledge how distressing and scary it's been for trans people. It's very difficult to hear such negative things about your community day in, day out.
And about yourself.
Yeah, and so much of it to be based in misinformation and disinformation.
Yep.
It's yeah, it's incredibly frustrating, I think, to hear the same kind of things said over and over and to know that they just don't align with what we know as medical professionals and researchers and trans people. It's been really a really tough few years for us, I would say. What is the response? I think because so much of what's said about us is based in misinformation and disinformation, we really have and we're seeing that now boil over and starting to impact policy, where it can have it's not just what's said about us, but it's like having an impact on
how you can live your lives.
How we can live our lives and our access to healthcare and our ability to engage in sport and
legal recognition.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, I think we're really kind of at a point now where there needs to be kind of a coordinated effort from governments and social media and news media to really kind of take some responsibility and take action. Because it's just having a huge, huge impact on our mental health and, the way that we can live our lives.
Yeah. Alex, what would you say about all the rhetoric? Being trans is a fad.
Time will tell. Just wait and see. You'll find more and more people standing up for themselves than, being there, existing, living their own lives.
Yep.
It's not going to just disappear. I find, the rhetoric and all the noise, they sort of want to stir emotional response from others.
It's very divisive, isn't it? And trying to incite people to hate, target a marginalised community.
Yeah, I would say they're pretty successful at what they're doing, unfortunately. Because my first anger, when my first response when I see or hear those things is right away anger. And I want to hit back. Then I'm like, no, there's no point. Because you can't argue with someone that refuses to not see anything else. They want to stay on their myths, their pseudoscience.
There's nothing you say is going to convince them.
Yeah. So why bother? Why waste that energy and effort? Instead, I can channel all this anger to do more research or, volunteer at sort of LGBT community organizations to mentor another young trans person, etc., rather than fight with them in the mud and get nowhere.
Absolutely. Danielle, what do you wish people understood about all of this so-called debate?
First thing is the real effect on real people's lives.
Yep.
The attacks on trans people quite intentionally dehumanize and depersonalize. And so it becomes this abstract thing, and then it becomes easy. It becomes easy to hate.
Once you dehumanize someone.
Yep. And when you take it away from having a personal effect on people's lives, then that's how this disinformation and anti-trans messaging can spread. And it's having a real big effect. And once you realize that trans people are actually everywhere, they're in every culture, they're at every age,
they're just people
in every profession, then that has a really big effect. I mean, to listeners who don't follow it as closely as we do, every single public servant of 1 million public servants in the USA, every single public servant who was trans got fired. Every single one, including in the military. There were hundreds and hundreds. That is, as an organisation, that is hundreds, if not thousands of years of training and experience just thrown away.
Yeah.
As a society, we need to be concentrating on the skills and attributes that people have to build a better and stronger community and to support each other. And trans people are part of that.
It's got nothing to do with gender identity. It's got nothing to do with serving as a public servant or being a doctor or being in the army.
Exactly right. And so, I think that the response that I've been really concentrating on in the last 12 months has been to really focus on community, embrace community. I've made very big steps in getting to know more trans people and queer people and allies we're a community that's full of love and support.
Yep.
And telling our stories is really the antidote. And it's up to non-trans people to really give us the platform to be able to tell our stories, who we are, what we do, and the value that we provide to society.
Absolutely.
And so, Sav was talking about the media taking responsibility. Yeah, centering trans voices is really essential. The majority of the time we get talked about without being without being part of the conversation, and that's really got to end. And well, social media can be good for that, I guess. There is a democratization of media and getting voices out there, right? And I think that's something that we need to do.
Algorithms tend to amplify the divisive and hateful messages that
Completely
incite
agree.
anger.
But conversations like this are so important. That's why I was thrilled to say yes. I'll be part of it because our stories are really what's going to make the difference.
And I'm so grateful to you all. Sav, a lot of people in our audience might be, worried about saying the wrong thing. What do you wish people knew about language or pronouns and what actually matters more than getting it perfect every time?
Yeah, I do think that people get quite scared sometimes to make a mistake, and there's a lot of anxiety around that, particularly around language, so pronouns and names.
What are your pronouns?
I use they, them pronouns. What I would say is that generally trans people understand that some of the language is a new thing for people and that it does take practice to get it right and that you will make mistakes, but the difference is how you respond to making a mistake.
I've certainly made many mistakes.
And, we can tell the difference between someone who doesn't care, who's intentionally misgendering us, and someone who does make a genuine mistake and then makes the effort to correct that and, move forward and gender us correctly from there forward. So, we can tell when there's effort and care involved, and mistakes happen. Even as trans people, we misgender each other. We misgender ourselves sometimes. It's about the intention and the effort to correct yourself and to learn and to do better next time.
Yeah, that's such a valuable message. So I want to ask you all a final question. Alex, for someone watching or listening who's never knowingly met a trans person, what is one small thing they could do this week that would actually matter?
I would say if they're an ally and they're supportive of their friend or whoever, to just continue what they're doing. You don't have to treat them any different if you knew or you had the privilege that they came out to you. That's just still who they are. And keep up the good work.
Yeah. Sav?
Yeah, I think because we're bombarded with so much disinformation and misinformation, learning to be a bit more critical of the information you come across when it comes to trans people and asking questions like, who is this person to be talking on this topic? Are they a trans person themselves? Do they have clinical experience treating trans people? Or, do they not know anything about trans people? Are they making space for trans people? And
particularly when we read the newspaper.
Yeah. And some of the most vocal people out there don't have much to do with trans people, if anything at all, yet they've chosen this as their topic that they're going to go on and on about. So, being critiquing and kind of questioning where the information's coming from and who is this person to be speaking on this topic, and looking for more reputable information as well, so that you can kind of make your way through all that disinformation and actually, find out good information, solid information about trans people that really reflects their experiences.
Amazing. Danielle, have you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, just one that came to mind. It was a conversation I had with a loved one a couple of days ago, that when someone discloses that they're trans to you, as a general community member, just sit with it, give them space. Maybe say something like, I had something in my head and now I can't remember what it was. But just to give it space and let that person tell things in their own time. Sometimes the reactions can be like concern, worry, or like, are you sure? Or, all of this kind of negative, doubtful stuff. I remember what it was about a suggestion. Wow, thank you so much for trusting me to tell me about something that's really personal. Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
And then, sit with it. I think because of so much of the negative stuff in the media, very often their reactions are also with that deficit model of like, oh, you poor thing, life's going to be really hard for you, or something like that, So no, sit with it and then try to see the excitement and the joy, because it's in there. If someone's telling you that they're trans or gender diverse and that something's going to happen, like they might be transitioning, there's going to be such excitement in there. You just have to wait for that to bubble up.
Yes. And I think the three of you are examples that you're all thriving.
Yes. Thriving. Yeah. So grateful. Really so grateful to have been on this journey.
So thank you so much, Danielle, Sav and Alex, for your honesty and generosity in sharing your stories today. I'm so grateful. If there's one thing for everyone listening out there that I hope you take from this conversation, it's that trans people are just people. They're not a debate. They're your colleagues, your doctors you may not even know, your researchers, your neighbours, your friends, your family, and the evidence on what helps them thrive is clear. What's needed now is for the rest of us to catch up with curiosity, with kindness, and with the willingness to learn. If you want to find out more information, we have a website, www.transresearch.org.au, with a whole lot of resources for community, for professionals, for allies. And I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today on the Raising the Bar podcast.
Thank you for listening to the podcast series of Raising the Bar Melbourne, a special health edition. If you want to listen to more Raising the Bar talks, head to rtbevent.com/podcasts.